Good morning, good morning, good morning, one and all, and you join us in yet another somewhat nice day for a walk. Definitely a bit wet, possibly a bit overclouded. Definitely going to rain later, that's for sure. But yeah, other than that, it's quite a nice day for a walk. A bit more dark and dreary than we've had for the past couple of weeks. But although last week's was quite a bit damp and dreary. But yes, good morning, good morning, good morning. How are we all? I hope you've had a fantastic week, and I hope you're looking forward to a good weekend. So, oh yeah, these are the new cows that they've put in this field. Let me show you these guys. They're a lot. Just to flip it over. There we go. So this is one of the new cows that they've put in the new field. Those are the rest of them down there. But yeah, they're they're a lot different than the other cows that we sometimes see out on these fields. But hang on, I'm going to dodge. Oh, good morning. So Marius, good morning. Paz, good morning to you all. And like I say, welcome to Good Morning Walk here in the heart of Yorkshire. 'Tis grand, I tell thee. 'Tis well and truly gradely. So yeah. Oh, right. Where to begin? To be honest, again, we've got more ridiculous Northern Ireland stuff to talk about. But we've got I want to go over Boris's shall we say look tough on crime stance that he's now taking. Of course, this week Boris and Patel unveiled a new police memorial, which is fine, but what they went on to announce were essentially what we've been saying for a while now, is that it's very, very easy for a government to look tough on crime, basically saying, oh, we're going to, lock you up more, or give judges the power easier to, sentence people for longer. Again, these measures are very, very easy and very, very publicly crowd pleasing in many, many ways. You see definitely a lot of people responding, in positive ways, like, why wouldn't you want to send a criminal to jail? But the truth is that especially in our country, it's not the sending people to prison that's the problem. It's half the time. Oh, good morning from Ireland. Good morning to you. It's not, the sending people to prison that's the problem. It's actually in the judgment side of things. It's if you follow The Secret Barrister, they're constantly telling you about this, the fact that the courts in the UK are literally crumbling. Oh, good morning, Mitch. Good morning. Or howdy, should we say, from Texas. So, they constantly talk about the fact that our courts here in the UK are literally crumbling to pieces because they are that old. There has been no infrastructure money put into building new courts or, providing these facilities. So as a result, it almost creates a bit of a bottleneck. And as the pandemic has caused problems with a waiting list in the NHS, we were already having problems for at least the past 2 years of it now taking a longer time to get people to trial because of this backlog. And of course, COVID has caused an even longer now backlog. Imagine if you were a witness to say something back in like 2017 or even 2018, which again is a clear example the secret barrister uses from some of their cases. If you were a witness to something back then how is your memory going to be able to remember those events as well, especially if you were a key witness to some of these events? So it's very, very worrying that we are having those types of problems, but the government would rather do things that are far more performative, like say, oh, we're going to send people for jail for longer. Doesn't really help that much in the long term of things. If all you're doing is sending people to jail for longer, well, congratulations. It's not really that too much of a big deal. But if you're sending like people who are like non-violent offenders to prison, or as Boris has recently said, we're going to have high-vis chain gangs doing community service, that could have a bad knock-on effect for other things. Many people may not have committed they may have committed sort of a crime, but it might not have been a serious crime. But they end up on these high-vis chain gangs forced to do this type of thing. And it can be sort of a source of shame and embarrassment that will be difficult for them to get rid of. Prospective employers may see them on these things and then may think that they don't want to hire them. They may be employed, get sent on this chain gang, and maybe end up losing their job because their boss maybe finds out that they were, involved in this. Like I say, there are a lot more better ways to punish criminals than to just send them to court or force them out into doing, community service. And again, like I say, go follow the secret barrister. They're constantly talking, about the British judicial system and how bad it really is. And like I say, it's an infrastructure problem, and the fact that we haven't got enough courts, we haven't got enough judges, and we haven't got enough prosecutors. And that is something that the government should be funding. But that's a lot more harder to get across to the public. So, of course, this is where Johnson and Patel come out. They come out with like these new crimes and policing bills, all of which, by the way, the Police Federation have turned around and said, yeah, that's nothing but sheer gimmickry. Or, as in the case of the new crime and policing bill with the new protest powers, basically said, well, we were never asked or consultated about these powers. We already have enough powers anyway to deal with protesters. We don't really feel that we need these types of powers that you're giving us. Like I say, it's very, very much a, shall we say, a crowd pleaser And because of that, it's easy to, shall we say, play to the masses, as they say, bread and circuses. As the Romans said, we'll keep your populace happy for the time being until essentially you can no longer provide bread. And I think that's very much the road that we are. And I think, again, it would be a fantastic move for Labour to actually say, the government's wrong on this, highlight the fact that our, courts are crumbling, say we're going to build new courthouses, we're going to get more judges in, we're going to hire more prosecutors, we're going to put money into the judgment side of things, because that's what will will solve this backlog, because that's another thing that the Tories should be seriously embarrassed about. Again, being often casting themselves as the crime and crime and punishment party, when they have such a long backlog of cases in their current judiciary system that people really aren't getting the justice that they need or they deserve. So it would be a fantastic platform to go for, and I think that's what a lot of people could indeed get behind, because it's easy just to say, oh, we're going to give more money to the police, which, don't get me wrong, is again always a good crowd pleaser, but you've got to remember that our police force here in the UK, ever since the days of austerity, have suffered greatly because of austerity. So restoring sort of more of the police budget back to, again, pre-2008 financial crash levels would be a very good thing for them. And again, it would help that sort of, in the whole crime thing. But it's not just that. We also need to look at preventative measures and rehabilitation. And you won't be surprised to which, shall we say, the Tories have put nothing in over these years, because these are, again, two important things. First of all, preventative measures, simple as it sounds, stop people committing crimes before they happen. Or, with rehabilitation, make sure that these people who have committed crimes are allowed, rehabilitation and access to, learning while they're in prison, so that they can upskill, so that then when they leave prison, they can get jobs and that they can be employed. Because that's half the problem when someone gets released. It's getting a job and readjusting back into society. So, again, rehabilitation, really important. Oh. Here's some more of those cows. You can see the old herd in the back. These are definitely a lot more younger. You can tell by how small they are. Oh, avoid that one. Oh. But yeah, it's like, what is it? Is it Denmark, Norway, and Sweden? Or it might even be Norway, that has such a low recidivism rate, which is, again, recommitting like a crime. They have such a low rate because they value so much the rehabilitation aspect in prison. And I think if I'm correct, their rate's something like below 10%. It's something really, really low, as I think it is in most of the Nordic countries, because they all value and really value rehabilitation. So as a result, like, repeat criminals are almost not a thing. So it just goes to show you how important rehabilitation is, prevention is, and the fact that justice is currently being denied to hundreds of thousands of victims of crime because we've got backlogs of cases going all the way back to 2017, 2018 at the moment. And the coronavirus hasn't made things better. So, and I've said before, we're going to be suffering from the ABCs quite a lot, which is, austerity, Brexit, and COVID. More for the fact that if COVID, we're going to be suffering from like the long-term social and economic effects really from COVID. And I've said before that you look at again any of the other European countries, they have like recovery plans that are going to last like 3 to 5 years, whereas our government is literally going, here's the money, and then that's it. So I keep on saying it, but 2022 is going to be incredibly hard for a lot of people. Very, very hard for a lot of people out there. I think that the further we move away from the pandemic, the more we are going to see the effects of Brexit. The new austerity is coming in this autumn budget, which is going to cut funding by up to 17 billion or something like that. So that's even more money, for people. And of course, again, if you may remember when Hartlepool went to the Tories in the by-election, there was that really hilarious interview of a guy and his son, and they were complaining about the fact that the police station in Hartlepool had been closed down. And you're like, you voted for the Tories because apparently the Tories were going to reopen it. The Tories were the ones who were responsible in the first place for it closing down. Why are they now going to reopen it? Especially with more of these budget cuts coming along. And like I say, the path to recovery needs more public spending. And the Tories are such ideologues when it comes to public spending. That they're not going to allow for any spending increasing of taxes. But how do we get out of this crisis? Well, I think next year is when we might see diverging, because they've talked about that they want to diverge from European standards. And I think that the drive for that the Tories are going to take, or especially like the hardcore free market fundamentalists, are definitely beyond a shadow of a doubt going to take up the mantra that we need to get rid of regulation, that's what's stalling our economy. So that's going to be their call. But we've said this before, that, David Cameron's call for, austerity because of the 2008 financial crash didn't really work out. It didn't work out. It made things worse. And of course, who was, quote, to blame for all our ills? Well, of course, it was the dreaded European Union. And as I've said before, the problems and ills of this country were never caused by that of the EU. It was done essentially by our own government. Shock horror, but there you go. And more accurately, it was the Tory austerity. So yeah, you are right. That is another problem next year we're going to have to look at: homelessness. Because a lot of people, again, have been out of the job. They've either been, sacked, so weren't on furlough. Landlords are irate about not being paid, so there's going to be a lot of evictions soon. And as I've said before, that perfect storm of austerity, COVID, Brexit is all going to mix together. Imagine like a weather forecaster like this. You've got austerity coming in from the south and a bit of Brexit coming in from the east, and just this westerly motions of COVID still remaining, blowing into this to create an absolute perfect hurricane. And that's essentially what it's going to cause. It's going to be an absolute perfect storm, because all these are Tory problems. Because austerity started by the Tories, continued by Boris, and of course no one has told all these new voters who, again, voted for Boris because he told them, oh, austerity's not in my lexicon, I'm banning the word austerity. No one has told all these new voters about this new austerity that's going to happen. So how are they going to react? I don't think very well, to be honest, at another general election. So, as we've said before, Boris's tightrope act, where he's got to try and balance sort of those new north and south seats, could collapse very quickly if the north feels that austerity is, going to screw them over again, which it is. And we've got some ponies. And again, he's full of like these spindly. If you may remember last summer, literally all the ponies, I don't know where they'd been, had like all those, I don't know if you can see them on his head here. There-ish. They're stuck to his head. And like I say, I've tried doing it before, but you literally need scissors to cut them out because they're that tangled into their mane. But yeah, 2022 is going to be... Oh, train's here. 2022 is going to be a really, really hard year, but it's going to be one for which the Labour parties can make a very significant impact and make very significant gains if we are playing it right. And already they are pushing for this. We've seen some of the new announcements come out. So, for example, thank you very much, Truosdy Cantwell. New EU laws on food safety come into effect this winter, and then the UK will have diverged, even if they don't change their laws. True. That is true, but thank you very much for your support there. And like I say, that's sort of what's going to happen. And in terms of divergence, the free market fundamentalists for years have banged on about how they're going to diverge or they want to diverge, and they've never done so. So it becomes a interesting question of what do you want to diverge with and what do you want to do? And especially with, evictions, there was at the moment an anti, you can't kick people out, which I think we should at least continue for another year. Hang on. I'm going to be very quiet now because we've got the swans. Ta-da! Welcome to Swan Watch. As you can see, here's two cygnets. A lot bigger, a lot bigger since we last saw them. There's one of the parents there, another one there, a couple more around there. There's two more. I'm just trying to count them. There's two there, the third one there, and there's 4 and 5. And I don't know if there's another one hiding below me somewhere here, but yes, as you can see. Welcome to Bird Park. But yeah, as you can see, the last time we saw the last time we saw them, they were tiny, if you remember. So they've grown up significantly since the last time we saw them. Like I say, you can see that they're, if you look at some of these feathers on some of these cygnets here, you can see that they're, I don't know, I think there's a technical term for like baby swan feathers. I think it's called the druff or something like that. They're growing out. So you can see that they're slowly starting to turn white from their baby fur, and you can now see that they are feeding from the water, pretty much like the adult is here. But yeah. Significantly, yes, true. They are significantly bigger than last time. Down, that's it. I knew it was something like that. But yes, come on, onwards we go. There we go. So, and it does become a race for regulation, and I think that the battles to come in Parliament are all going to be about regulation. Who does regulation better? Is regulation good? And also subsidies of how do we spend government money and where do we spend it? Because even with the Tories, plan of austerity, they have managed to triple our debt under it. So, so much for the idea that, austerity is about reducing the UK national debt when it has only gone and tripled it. So it becomes a very, very interesting, definitely time ahead for politics, and those are the fights that we're going to have in the future of regulation. The other thing you saw this week in Sheffield, which again wasn't prompted by the government, but actually the Ministry of Defence. The Ministry of Defence bought. Oh, that's that's a terrible joke. That's a terrible. But if you want a really bad joke, the Aboriginal word for return is boo. Because when you throw a meringue, it doesn't come back. That's my staple of bad jokery. Of course, the other one is I recently went to the wedding of 2 satellites. It was awful, but the reception was amazing. These are the jokes, folks. So yeah, we've had so the battles of the future will be about so the battles of the future will be about public spending. Oh, they're doing something there. Don't know what they're digging. They're digging something. I think that's going to be it. The next big political questions of the time of which party, either be it the Labour or the Tories, who can spend the cash better. And as I've said before, I think the next general election, currently it's 3 years away, but if Boris and co succeed in getting rid of the Fixed Term Parliament Act, then who knows when the next general election could be, because then the power to call an election rests in Boris's hands. And of course, we've still got to ask that question: will Boris stay for the next general election? Will he be the next guy at the next general election? We don't know, because I think a lot of the, shall we say, more moderate Tories in their party seem to be reacting very interestingly that they wish Boris Johnson was a little less Boris Johnson-y. So, like I say, these, these times are, they're going to be very hard. And like I say, 2022 from then on is going to be bad, because I think you're going to ask a lot of, questions about how has Brexit actually gone. Now we're officially, a year into Brexit. What has been the impact on the economy? Well, we already know the impact on the economy. I mean, just this week we've lost Honda. the Honda plant down in Swindon. Now, of course, the Honda has denied that it is Brexit that has forced them to move, but as anyone will tell you, they've been struggling to get car parts since the beginning of the year. And of course, back in 2019 was when we were still trying to decide when the what form of Brexit is going to take and how bad is it going to be. And I think they took the very obvious political calculation that it would not be good for them to remain there. Now, of course, the big question is why has Honda moved and Nissan hasn't? Well, if you haven't heard very recently, Nissan essentially got a very, very large chunk of change from our government, essentially. And as a result, up in Sunderland, they're now changing over to a battery plant manufacturing state. So they're going from making cars to making batteries. Now, of course, I think the pure reason was simply this. Throughout all the 2016 referendum, and even since then, the Sunderland plant has almost been like the battleground. And I think that if Nissan suddenly up sticks and said, right, we're moving, and all those jobs were lost, it would be a very, very clear indicator that they had lost something. Remember, Sunderland, of course, was one of the first places that reported in a very, very big swing for leave back in 2016. So obviously it is a political monument almost, to a point, of having to keep that plant there versus the one down in Swindon, which again has resulted in about 4,000 job losses for that local economy. And I think it sets it up that, there was a machinist who used to get £20 an hour. And, there was a recruiter that the BBC interviewed and said they're going to find it hard to someone, to get those new, to get that same wage that they were used to. You're probably looking at like £10 an hour. So for the people down in, Swindon at that Honda plant, it's going to be very, very, very bad for them. As it always is when there's, massive job losses like that. So it does become almost a political focusing point. But this causes problems for our government later down the line, because we've diverged, and this is now a battery plant, not a car manufacturing plant anymore. How many jobs are going to be kept there when they go from car manufacturing to battery production? How many jobs are going to be kept at that Sunderland plant? And if, of course, we've said before, Renault, owned by the French government, decides to pull their shares from there, will Nissan stay? Again, we don't know, but the very fact that now our government has essentially chosen to try and bribe Nissan to stay does represent a significant problem, not only for this government in the future, but successive governments down the road, because now you may get the fact of Nissan in the future may just say, well, if you don't give us X amount of money, then we'll shave 1,000 jobs from the plant. You know, this is the situation that government, this Tory government, has put themselves in. And they made Sunderland very symbolic. You know, it's Boris Johnson's own fault for making Sunderland such a symbolic point. And that's why, you know, Nissan got the payout, but Honda didn't. So as a result, Honda goes. You know, that's what, 38 years of, you know, car manufacturing at that plant alone just gone. And it's becoming a logistics hub. Basically, it's becoming an Amazon warehouse. So, oh, good morning from Jutland. Good morning to you. So already, you know, those very good and very well paying manufacturing jobs, like I say, for a machinist being paid £20 an hour, that's pretty good. Nope. So, you know, they're not going to be able to get that same wage at an Amazon warehouse, you know. So I think there's definitely a big reality check for a lot of people in Sunderland. And I think that the question should be asked. I think it's definitely something that Labour should have been making a fuss about. Why has the government given Nissan such a large amount of money, but Honda not? And again, I think that could have been a very successful win, and we could have pointed more to the fact of, hey, you know, the government's just given a significant amount of money to Nissan. Why have they given such a significant amount of money to Nissan? Now, of course, the Japanese are never going to come out and say it. It's just not in their culture to rock the boat or say anything politically. So they're never going to say it. But the government could say it if you forced them to say it. And I think that would be a very, very good political win. If you could get someone in the government to go, oh yeah, the reason why we had to give them all that money was because they were going to up sticks and move. So it does become a very, very, you know, interesting tactic. Later on, I think that it is definitely something that should be brought up and should be asked of the government of why did Nissan get the payout but the Honda plant didn't. And it all comes down to the fact that during the 2016 referendum, the Sunderland plant was made the focus of a lot of talk about the consequences for leaving the European Union. And I think the Brexiteers and the fully know that if they left, that if they allowed Nissan to leave up in Sunderland, then that would be a very, very bad mark for them. And like I say, as the car parts industry goes in the UK, they're going to find it even more harder because, as we've said, the checks currently for stuff coming into the country, going out, yes, they're there. Obviously, you have to go into the EU, so that's when checks come in. But even then, checks are occurring on the European side of the border, not our side. And if you want a preview, as we've said before, of what this mess is going to look like, you've only got to look at Northern Ireland, where but just some of the checks are being implemented. And part, I think, of the Tory plan is to try and stop as many checks as possible going in, because they know the consequences it's going to have on Northern Ireland, and indeed even the rest of the country. Like I say, we're going to have quite the Halloween, shall we say, when these checks come in, because these checks are going to be coming in officially from the start of October, rolling up through March again when more come online, and then they're going to continue throughout 2020 slowly but surely, and then they should be fully implemented by January of 2023. And already we're seeing queues down at the border. We're seeing fights for Portaloos from lorry drivers, you know, that's been dubbed the Great Battle of Portaloo. You know, that's already happening down south. That the problems that we warned about for years are there, and they're happening. And then the more checks that go on to essentially our side, the worse that situation will become. And this will affect all ports up and down, you know, the country. So these are there, and like I say, if you followed the Sussex, is it the Sussex bylines that are like a local, you know, regional news organisation, they've constantly talked about how, oh yeah, the media isn't picking up on the fact that there are these now big queues down south, that there are these problems coming in down south. Catholic, welcome. You're awake, welcome. So it does become, and will lead up to, more problems. And we've already got the situation where exports to the EU have still collapsed. And again, a lot of this is, of course, being used as cover by the Brexiteers and saying that, you know, oh, it's just the coronavirus that's doing it. Well, they can't really keep that up forever, as much as they like to think so. Sooner or later, you know, COVID was a blessing in disguise for the Brexiteers. It really was. So I think that the so I think that the consequences of Brexit are going to become ever more clearer. And I think the more that is made more clearer, then the more the idea that Labour can then go out and say, as Rachel Reeves has said recently, that, you know, the Tory Brexit's a failure, Labour's going to have to fix and sort it out. And they've expressly said that they want to have close relations with the EU. So it's definitely a start to getting things back on track. And of course, as has been said, I don't know how many times, it does not make any sense economically, politically, for the UK to be outside the European Union. And eventually, you know, it's just our path will go essentially to being back into the EU. It's just a matter of when. So that's my D&D group organising tonight's game. So it will be we just go path of North Korea, just pursue complete sovereignty. So it does become very interesting, and I think that, as we mentioned before, when we had those, what could only be described as the absolute debacle of the Norway negotiations, and of course Norway came out and said something very, very interesting that was basically summed up to the UK was not interested in talking with the EU until 2022. So that should raise some very interesting questions, because why is the UK... Oh, we're having wind problems. Oh. So I'm gonna have to get a new microphone again. deal with our wind problems. So it does become more and more of a problem, and more of an interesting solution, or potential solution, that everything we see about, you know, the Northern Ireland border, because why would you bring up such an important point about Northern Ireland and then essentially just go on holiday as what has been done at the moment? Like I say, our MPs are in recess, and like I say, these negotiations are going to be you know, forever negotiations, as long as the Tories can keep it up, because they can still prove to their home crowd of, oh, look how tough we are and how tough we're being on the EU. And I think that gives the game away, because obviously checks aren't going to be beginning until October, and at least the start of the new year. So that cow's in a very weird position. I think he's just having a stretch. And there are, I don't know if you can see them. Right, where are they? Hang on. I'll tell you what, we'll do it this way. There are, if you can see them. They're very, very tiny. You can see them. There are 3 baby ponies over there, the new 3 bambinos, if you can see them. But yes, it becomes quite interesting when you think that we're having a situation where Boris is literally threatening to tear up his whole Brexit deal. And I think you are seeing Boris trying to build the groundwork for politically just trying to renegotiate Brexit from the ground up completely after his, quote, oven-ready deal. And of course, the excuse will be that it was the EU that destroyed or poisoned his recipe for this oven-ready deal. So I think that in 2022, either two things are going to happen. The good way, which I hope is the direction, is that the Conservatives have made a political calculus that they can survive this current Brexit for about a year. And that afterwards, after doing this whole, song and dance kabuki theatre, that they can come back and go, oh, look, weren't we tough on the EU? And then they can secretly start to slowly but surely do some more negotiations and slide back into some stuff. That's what I hope that happens. The other, of course, is that as checks, shall we say, come on for the rest of the UK, it gets used as a justification to completely chuck the entire, Brexit framework. That could be a possibility. Morning. So if they do that, then of course we're back to WTO terms, which is what many of the free market fundamentalists in the Conservative Party want. So we go completely back to square one. I mean, it just boggles the mind that this is what they potentially want to do, but that's the that's the comedy show that we're all here to watch. Yes, but as all, we are at the end of our walk this morning. Maybe we'll try and get some last bit of pony in for you. There you go. So, as always, thank you everyone for coming and joining us as normal on the Good Morning Walk. If you would like to help support the channel, there are links down below to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. Also, the YouTube memberships are now open, aka the Pony Club. So you can join that and help support the channel in that way. And of course, as always, thank you everyone for joining us on this, as usual, this somewhat very dull Good Morning Walk. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone. As always, if you can't be safe, be sensible. And of course, if you are in the UK, please do remember to keep on wearing your masks and think about social distancing, because the virus is indeed still out there, even if the government likes to say that it's all over now. So, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.